Hello and welcome back to the Resilient Kid podcast with me, Ash Costello, psychotherapist of over 25 years. Hello, nice to have you here again. So today is a little bit different in the fact that quite often we talk about kids and we're going to talk about emotional regulation, but actually what we're going to do is talk about our emotional regulation as parents. So what is emotional regulation? Well, it's taking a step to control the intensity of an emotional experience. So sometimes it might be, particularly sad, particularly angry, things like that. And it's just trying to dial it down, make sure that it's within our control. And we can build these skills to regulate our emotions. It's not about distracting yourself. It's not about suppressing them or avoiding them. It's about something that we can learn to just give us that sense of control, I guess, more than anything. Now, when we control our emotions, when we can regulate them, it means that we have a positive impact on our mental health, also the relationships around us. So as a parent, our job comes down to this: regulating our kids' emotions by walking them through what's happening, as we're the ones that have got the fully developed brains. Okay. But first, we need to make sure that we regulate ourselves. All right. There's plenty of things that kids do that send us over the edge. All right. And there's a couple of reasons why this happens. One is it could be something from our own childhood that triggers our own fight and flight. So I remember kind of as my kids were growing up, as they were kind of getting a little bit older, I realized that if I asked them to do something and they ignored me, that was it. I was gone. Like that would really trigger me, that I would be fuming, absolutely furious. And I did some work on myself, as us therapists like to do, and actually realized it wasn't because they were ignoring me. It was because as a child, I was an only child, sometimes didn't feel that I was completely listened to. And so brought up those old feelings. So it wasn't my kids ignoring me. It was that I felt I'd been ignored before. So yeah, it can be something from our childhood that can trigger us really easily, and actually nothing to do with our kids. So the second reason that we can kind of be triggered is a reflection of our own parenting. So, for example, if you're in the supermarket and your kid has a complete meltdown, like the one in the advert where they're on the floor kicking and screaming, stuff like that. Well, we often see that as a reflection of our parenting skills. We feel judged by others and think that we failed. So sometimes we can then be triggered because we just want that to stop so that people don't judge us. Now, what I say is they need to mind their own business, first of all, but actually we need to be confident in our own parenting skills. And the more confident that we are, the less likely we're going to be triggered by our kids' behaviour. So if you're triggered by something from your childhood, I would absolutely recommend you get a therapist. Don't have to come to me, there's plenty out there, and work through that, because you will feel so much better about yourself. And if it's the second, really, believe in your own parenting skills. I am always saying to parents that I work with, you are the expert with your child. You know your child the best. So be confident in your parenting. Okay, so how do we kind of, regulate our own emotion? How do we really work on ourselves so that we're in a place that we can then walk our kids through? Well, identifying what kind of trigger it is. Identify those triggers, really think about what it is that causes you to lose your cool, or when you're under pressure. It can be something like, so for instance, a really good example of this for me would be when I get in from kind of work and, I've got the radio on, I'm maybe starting tea, I'll start cooking for everybody. I've probably, not drank enough water that day or not eaten enough. So I could already be hungry. The cats are meowing for food. The kids come in, they both talk at once, things like that. I can get really sensory overload really quickly and can lose my cool a little bit. So really think about identifying the triggers. And, sometimes we can just sit down and it takes like 5 or 10 minutes. Think about the kind of times that you might lose your temper, or the times that you feel really under pressure or under stress with the kids. Write it down, identify those triggers, identify those triggers. That will really help. The second kind of way is to listen to your body. This is an important one, because often there are physical signs that we feel under threat. Because remember, when we're triggered, our brain will go into that fight and flight. So really think about and tune in to your body. It could be, you feel your fist clenching or your teeth. You might start to sweat. You might start to overthink things. You might become very overwhelmed. Those kind of physical responses will help you identify, and then you can do something about it. Next one, name your emotions. Now, I always say this to parents to really help children who are struggling with their emotions. But if you name what you feel, it really helps emotional literacy. The quicker we identify what emotion we're going through, whether it's anger, resentment, fear, sadness, things like that, helps us not only share it with others, but actually the quicker we identify it, the easier it is to deal with it. And it's amazing role modeling for kids. Like I often say, talk to the kids, say what you see with them. But actually, it's really important to go, I'm really sorry. I'm just stressed now. Or, I'm really sorry. I'm feeling really angry right now. You need to give me a few minutes to just calm myself down. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And on that note, take time out. We talk about time out with kids all the time. Make sure you tell your kids you need that time. I'm really angry right now. I'm going to go and calm down. Then we can chat. Or, I'm really sad. I just need a little bit of space. Things like that. So that we're then in a place that we can choose how to respond rather than reacting in the fight and flight that we get caught up in very easily. Next one, excuse me. If you feel, so deep breathing has come up there, but actually, and that, can seem really flippant, but actually the quickest way to calm down our fight and flight reaction is deep breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth, excuse me. And doing that deep breathing, and not just one or two, really go to town, calms down our fight and flight center, it calms down our amygdala the quickest way possible. Absolutely. Sorry, I've got a frog in my throat. So that is the quickest way to calm down. It's the quickest way for kids, quickest way for us to just calm down that fight and flight center. Be kind to yourself. Now, this is important because we often beat ourselves up, don't we? Berate ourselves when we've lost our cool or we've shouted at the kids. You're not going to make yourself feel any better. If you have upset others, do exactly what I would say to children is, make amends. It's a really good lesson for kids. It's a really good role model. If I've ever, been snappy or something with the kids, I will then say, I am sorry, this is why, and I will talk them through it, and I will apologise, and I will, make it up. I don't mean I'm walking over hot coals to make it up to them, but I'll say, I was just having a bad day. But also, think about those times that maybe you haven't lost it, then, give yourself a pat on the back for that. That's important that you did kind of keep your cool, which is really good. The kind of other one that I would say to you is, and I've noticed this makes a massive difference for me, excuse me, is take up exercise. Now, I'm not on about running to the gym for, 2 hours a day or anything like that. But actually, taking up exercise, whether, it could be yoga, it can be walking the dog, it can be going to the gym if that's your thing, it can be doing a sport, whatever it is. What I would say to you is stress hormones gather in the body. And if we can move our body in some way, even if it is literally just a bit of stretching or taking a walk around the block, then what happens is it moves those stress hormones. And rather than sitting there with nowhere to go, it really does move those hormones out and helps us regulate our emotions so much easier. And you will find that if you are somebody who has quite a job that's sedentary, is that the right word? And you don't move a lot, then stress can build, particularly if you have got a stressful job. If you've got a stressful job and those stress hormones are already building, then you've got a particularly hard night, bathing the kids or putting them to bed, or they're arguing, things like that. Then that stress is sitting on top of stress. And it's just going to get worse. Whereas, do you remember, I hate to say this, but do you remember in lockdown when we could go for a walk for 30 minutes a day or an hour a day or something, we was allowed out the house? And actually, getting outside in nature, getting that fresh air, we don't take that opportunity, do we? Whereas then we were desperate to do it because we couldn't do anything else. So just, think about if you're parking up somewhere, just walk a little bit further, park a bit further away. Think about having a walk around the block after dinner, things like that, or on your lunch break, just to really help move and shift those stress hormones. The other thing I would say as well, which I've not put here, is water and nature are absolutely amazing. So getting out in nature helps regulate our nervous system, therefore our emotion regulation. Also, if you can feel yourself getting really stressed, another one is to put your wrists under cool running water. That really helps. Having a shower, having a bath, again, just helps really move those stress hormones that tend to sit there. And this is particularly true for children, but it is for us too. I would be giving similar advice for kids. In fact, before I was doing the Resilient Kid, I used to do mini me yoga, and fabulous program, and I was the CEO over there, and I would make up a yoga flow for kids to really push those stress hormones. If their kids were anxious or they were worried, we'd make up a little yoga flow to really push those out. So we would do dolphin pose or boat pose or downward dog. A couple of stretches up and then downward dog will really help push those stress hormones through. The other thing I would say as well is fill up your own cup. Let me just put this on as a banner. Fill your own cup. For me, filling my cup looks different in different ways. So I have a group of friends, which includes my sister, that if I just need to, completely come away from work, not discuss work, they're the ones I go to. We will have dinner together. We'll do sleepovers, grown-up sleepovers at each other's houses. We might have something to eat and a drink and stay over and stay up late, you know, like when you were teen, stay up late chatting and things. Sometimes we sing, sometimes we, you know, we just have a laugh, sometimes we might just watch a movie together, but it's a real cup filler for me. And it's really important that we fill our own cup, because without that, if we are just, you know, on the work and kid treadmill, then actually that makes it really difficult. You know, if you've got a partner, get some time with your partner if that is possible. And it doesn't have to be a big fancy restaurant, does it? Or a big fancy date. It can literally be, you know, sometimes we will, you know, kind of, if the kids are out, or if that we'll do an afternoon date, or what we might do is kind of late at night, we might stay up and watch a movie. You know, we know that we've not got such a big day the next day. We might stay up late after the kids have gone to bed, watch a movie together, open a bottle of wine, you know, really think about making those connections. That could be as simple as going round to your mum's for a cup of tea, or, you know, seeing an auntie you've not seen for ages, but just having that connection that's just for you and really help fill up your cup. Because it will, when we talk about regulating our emotions, if we have got nothing left to give, it's very difficult for us to regulate our emotions, let alone walk our kids through theirs. So filling up your cup, getting stuff like exercise, connecting in with friends and family, things like that. Make sure that you've filling up that cup so you've got some resources, so you've got some capacity to then give to the kids. All right. I am going to stop that here. And I hope you found that valuable. And then next week, I'm going to do about kids regulation, kids emotional regulation. And then we're going to have a break over Christmas. The reason I've talked about regulating our emotions as adults is because we're going to need it, because Christmas is coming. Don't know about you, but I've got 15 for dinner. So yes, I'm definitely going to be filling up my cup beforehand, and probably my wine glass on the day. So whatever you're doing, if you're trundling towards the end of school year, work year, or just getting yourselves ready for the holiday season, I wish you the best of luck and lots of love from my family to yours. Take care for now.